The emergency transmission crackled through the silence of Earth's orbital command, jolting Commander Elias Voss from his third night without sleep. A woman's voice, shrill and warping under static, screamed over the channel. "This is Mars Outpost L7. They're inside the perimeter. They're not taking prisoners, they're hunting us. For sport." 4. Then nothing. Just a low-pitched screech, like metal tearing through bone. Then silence. The control room dropped into a suffocating stillness. Officers stared at their screens, waiting for someone to say it was a glitch. But Elias didn't speak. He knew better. He had heard that sound before, on Europa, 20 years ago, when the Rachthal first tasted human blood. He turned to the holographic interface hovering beside him. "Patch me through to Central Defense. This is no raid. This is the start." The council chamber smelled of ozone and old fear. 12 delegates, each representing a quadrant of Earth's territories, projected in shimmering blue light. Their expressions varied from disbelief to bureaucratic boredom. Only one looked alert. Dr. Mara Day sat forward in her chair, her brown eyes sharp under the glow of her data slate. "This isn't a random attack. I've decrypted the Rachthal's most recent broadcast from deep space. It's a ritual invocation, a ceremonial declaration of a planetary culling." Elias narrowed his gaze. "You're saying they've declared a hunt?" Mara nodded. "They don't consider us soldiers. They see us as prey, an exotic hunt for prestige and dominance. Earth is their proving ground." A delegate scoffed. "Then we'll reinforce Mars. Escalate our perimeter defenses." Elias stepped in. "No, Chairman. That's what they want. Defensive posturing confirms our weakness. The Rachthal revere the hunt. If we react like frightened prey, they'll never stop. So what do you suggest?" Mara asked, not challenging, but curious. Elias stared at the holographic galaxy rotating slowly in the center of the table. Mars blinked red. "We hunt them back." The barracks beneath Earth's polar command were cold, humming with forgotten energy. Only ghosts of wars remained here, retired weapons, silent training fields, names etched in steel. Elias stood before 5 soldiers, each pulled from different corners of the solar system. None wore the same uniform. Some hadn't seen combat in years. One, Lieutenant Imani Cade, was fresh off a dishonorable discharge. But all of them had one thing in common: they'd survived a Rachthal encounter and lived to tell the tale. He paced slowly. "I'm not here to give you medals or morality speeches. I'm here to offer you one shot at turning the fear around. They think we're weak. They've studied our wars and called us disorganized, emotional, inefficient. But they haven't seen what we become when we're cornered." He gestured to a projection of the Rachthal, massive, reptilian, armored in bone and hide. "This is what they are. Ritualistic, hierarchical, predictable. They've evolved for millions of years to dominate, but not to adapt. We don't have claws. We don't have scales. What we have is the will to become whatever the fight demands. That's what scares them. That's what we weaponize." Imani stepped forward. "So what's the mission?" Elias cracked a thin smile. "We're going to flip the hunt. We lure them. We trap them. We leave behind just enough of their own to whisper what we've become." Later that night, Elias stood alone at the training field, watching simulated terrain flicker into rocky Martian ridges. He ran his hand across a drone hull shaped like a collapsed escape pod, part of their Bates system. Every detail mattered. He heard Mara's voice behind him. "I ran your plan through 8 strategic simulations. 5 ended in mutual destruction. 2 in complete failure. 1 worked." He didn't turn. "That's better odds than I expected." She stepped beside him. "You're playing a dangerous game. If we provoke them too soon..." "They're already provoked. They crossed the line the second they made trophies out of colonists." She paused. "Do you know why their hunters wear bone armor?" He looked at her, intrigued. "It's not just for defense. It's memory. Every plate comes from prey that fought back. The more resistant the prey, the more honored the hunter. They believe resistance cleanses weakness. Elias's expression hardened. Then it's time to make them choke on their honor. 3 hours later, Mars lost another outpost. There was no scream this time. Just a single word in a Racthol dialect broadcast back to Earth, intercepted by Mara's system. Cleansing begun. She ran the translation 3 times to be sure. And then, she sent the alert to Elias. He read the message in silence, jaw tightening. Then he opened the Phantom unit comms. Deploy on my mark. Ceres Canyon site. Operation Ghost Teeth is green. Across the solar system, 6 units received the command. In the dark cold of space, beneath layers of silence and steel, the hunted had just become the hunters. The Racthol scout ship hovered silently above the Ceres Canyon, cloaked in dust and thin atmosphere. Its sensors swept the gorge below, no heat signatures, no movement, only the skeleton of an abandoned mining colony. It was textbook prey terrain. The Racthol commander, Scarveth, adjusted his breathing mask and issued a command in guttural clicks. 4 hunters disembarked, their bone-blade gauntlets gleaming under the pale light. One tapped a totem on his chest, invoking the rite of cleansing. They didn't know they had already triggered it. Contact confirmed, whispered Imani through her throat mic. Her eyes tracked the Racthol hunters through the thermal scope, red silhouettes against the canyon's cold void. They're splitting. 2 moving toward the central shaft. Just like we baited. Elias's voice came through steady, quiet. Hold until the 3rd makes entry. Then drop the north rig. We want them disoriented, not vaporized. On the ridge above, Elias crouched beside a decoy drone, its hull scorched, human blood sprayed across its seams. It looked like a last stand, staged with painful precision. The Phantom unit had learned fast. To hunt hunters, you had to know what they loved most: fear, defiance, and signs of desperate prey. Below, the 3rd Racthol descended the shaft. Elias whispered, "Now." Imani triggered the detonation. A muffled thump echoed across the gorge. Dust plumed. Rocks collapsed inward, sealing the canyon's exit. The Racthol, suddenly boxed in, raised their weapons and scanned for movement. Then came the sounds. Not real ones. Not human. The Phantom's pulse projectors emitted pre-recorded distress cries, pleas for mercy in half-broken English. Blood-curdling screams. Static choked with breathless sobbing. Mara's idea. Psychological saturation. Disorient the sensory systems. Turn pride into paranoia. The Racthol flinched. That's when the unit struck. Imani dropped first, sliding down the slope like a phantom of dust. Her railgun hissed once, clean shot, straight through the soft joint under a Racthol's shoulder plate. The creature spun, roaring, but it never found its footing before she vanished behind cover. Kaito and Juno followed, working in practiced silence. Kaito's grab blades split the air, slashing through tendon and bone with surgical precision. Juno, small and wiry, rigged electromagnetic tripwires behind fallen debris, forcing the Racthol to cluster, right where she wanted them. Elias moved last. He didn't speak. He didn't hesitate. He approached the last Racthol standing, who had already impaled a Phantom drone. As the creature turned, Elias hurled a flash pellet at its feet. The pulse overloaded its optics, too sensitive for the sudden wideout. In one smooth motion, Elias surged forward and fired a shock lance into its neck joint. The beast collapsed, convulsing. They left it alive. That was the point. Later, in the extraction shuttle, Imani peeled off her cracked visor. 4 down, 1 gift-wrapped, she muttered, wiping blood from her cheek. Any casualties? Elias asked, not looking up. Just Kaito's pride. Took a tusk to the vest. Kaito groaned, bruised but grinning. Worth it. Mara entered from the rear chamber, where the captive Racthol had been restrained with magnetized cuffs. Her expression was unreadable. He's in a ritual silence. He won't speak. But I monitored his neurospikes during the ambush. They spiked when we broadcasted the screams. Elias nodded. Fear? Recognition. Those weren't just screams. They were phrases. He understood some of them. Elias's brow furrowed. You're saying they've studied our language? No, she said slowly. I'm saying someone else has. Before us. And the Rakthal remember it. 3 hours later, Elias stood over the restrained Rakthal in the interrogation chamber. Its eyes tracked him, not with contempt but caution. It was wounded, yes. But it wasn't broken. Not yet. Elias activated the holo projector, displaying battle footage from Europa, Mars, and now Ceres. Images of phantom units blending into shadow, strikes launched from nowhere, soldiers vanishing like whispers. You think you've hunted us, Elias said quietly. But you've only chased the noise we let you hear. We know your patterns. Your formations. Your faith. He took a slow step forward. You pray to the bones of your kills. You chant before you murder. And every one of you dies the same way, surprised we could bleed you. He leaned in close. Tell your kind, the prey is learning. The Rakthal growled, deep and guttural. But Elias saw it. A flicker of hesitation. A fracture in certainty. Meanwhile, Mara was compiling a new data thread. She had compared the Rakthal neurospike to an ancient signal intercepted years ago from deep space ruins near Kepler 186f. The linguistic patterns were similar, primitive, violent, but structured around hierarchy and fear. She leaned back, whispering to herself. Someone hunted them once. And humanity might be echoing that forgotten predator. Back at Phantom Command, Elias watched the new transmission intercepted from Rakthal territory. It was a war chant. But there was a shift. For the first time, it didn't reference glory. It referenced shame. Loss. A coming reckoning. Elias tapped into the comms. They're gathering now. Which means they're scared. And scared predators make mistakes. He looked toward the horizon, Mars a dull red bruise in the distance. Time to make this war their legacy. The Phantom unit wasn't built for diplomacy. But when Elias Voss walked into the underground war chamber beneath Geneva Outpost, every attending officer fell silent. A crimson flag, emblazoned with the clawmark insignia of the Rakthal, flickered on the main holoscreen. The enemy had issued a new declaration, not of victory, but of reckoning. The chant repeated one line over and over, filtered through distorted audio. A new praise speaks the language of the first death. Mara stood at the center console, eyes fixed on waveforms and historical resonance charts. Her voice was calm, but taut with urgency. The Rakthal aren't just reacting. They're unraveling. That chant is tied to something ancient, something they buried. Elias narrowed his eyes. You think we've stepped on a myth? Mara shook her head. Worse. We've become one. In the cold dark of the Saturn belt, Phantom Unit executed Operation Hollow Echo. Using stolen Rakthal distress signals, they hijacked a merchant convoy's comms, luring a predator frigate into a debris field seeded with cloaked pulse charges. The moment the alien ship crossed the kill radius, Elias gave the signal. A cascade of light detonated through the void, controlled, precise. Not to destroy, but to confuse. Aboard the frigate, Rakthal warriors scrambled to respond, only to find the ship's gravity inverted, artificial night plunging them into total darkness. Holographic specters danced in the corridors, mimicking human voices, echoing the cries of fallen predators. Junos slipped through ventilation ducts, leaving behind beacon-tagged grenades. Kaito rigged fusion batteries to overload on a 15-second delay, just enough to clear a path without triggering full collapse. Imani provided sniper cover from a stealth shuttle rotating above the asteroid belt, her shots piercing the hull with surgical exactness. Within 4 minutes, Phantom Unit extracted a memory core and detonated a false distress beacon. By the time the Rakthal command received the recording, it showed only one frame, a human silhouette walking through fire. At command, Mara cracked the core's encryption. What she found wasn't a war log. It was a prayer. To the ones buried in silence. Forgive us. The prey have returned. She stared at the symbol embedded at the bottom, a serpentine glyph, older than Rakthal writing, looping back on itself. A closed cycle. Endless return. Elias read over her shoulder. What does it mean? Mara hesitated. Their ancestors fled something. And we're triggering its memory. Not with force, but with pattern. Elias nodded slowly. Fear by familiarity. Back on Earth, political councils began to fracture. Some demanded peace talks, terrified of waking a greater war. Others demanded escalation. Humanity had never held this much leverage, not in centuries. Elias wanted neither. We're not here to rule them. Just to end the hunt. Mara agreed. But time was against them. The Rakthal didn't wait long. Their war fleet changed course. Not to Earth, but to Kepler 186f. The burial site Mara had once surveyed years ago, where carvings hinted at forgotten extinction. She pieced it together at once. They're not coming for us. They're going to destroy the records. Elias clenched his jaw. Because history is scarier than war. Phantom Unit boarded the Aegis Vale, a stealth corvette built from alien alloys salvaged in the Titan rebellions. No insignias. No transmissions. Just silence and velocity. As they approached Kepler 186f, Mara reviewed her notes one last time. The buried complex held skeletal remains, not human, but eerily similar. Bipedal. Cranial ridge structure designed to amplify sonic frequency. Tools shaped like symbols. They hadn't died in war. They'd vanished in fear. They called themselves the Echoed Flame, Mara whispered. And we're mirroring them now? No, she said. We're finishing their story. The descent was rough. Rakthal forces had already arrived, cleansing the ruins with plasma torches, obliterating the glyphs. Elias growled. They're not erasing us. Not again. Phantom Unit deployed through the dust storms, moving like shadows among shadows. This wasn't a battle. It was sabotage in reverse. They weren't breaking things. They were preserving the truth. Kaitos sliced power relays. Juno extracted crystal cores etched with sonic records. Imani provided suppressing fire from high ground, sending Rakthal into retreat before they even located the team. Elias and Mara reached the central chamber, the origin site. Inside, a mural glowed dimly in the dust. It depicted the Rakthal, primitive and hunched, kneeling before an alien figure with a split crest and hollow eyes. Not in submission. In terror. Mara touched the glyph and activated a latent signal. Memory pattern aligned, the walls whispered. The chamber responded, not with noise but resonance. A vibration thrummed through the rock, through their bones. A wordless recognition. Across the sky, Rakthal's ships halted midair. They heard it too. The fear of a forgotten god, now reborn in human form. Elias keyed his calm. Broadcast it. The signal surged, ancient, primal, untranslatable. But clear. Pray no more. Rakthal fleet engines flared in retreat. No counterattack. No final stand. They left. Back aboard the Aegis Vale, silence filled the command deck. Juno finally spoke. So, what the hell just happened? Elias glanced at Mara. She exhaled. We became myth. Cliffhanger ending of Chapter 3. In the black reaches of space, beyond Rakthal territory, a derelict probe activated. Its receiver blinked. One message received. The prey remembers. A second later, somewhere deep in an uncharted nebula, something stirred. Not Rakthal. Not human. But old. Very old. And listening. The stars above Earth shimmered with unfamiliar tension. For the first time in living memory, no Rakthal ships shadowed planetary orbit. Their fleet had withdrawn beyond charted space, silent, scattered, and fractured. But peace didn't follow. It was the stillness before a deeper storm. Commander Elias Voss stood alone on the observation deck of the Aegis Vale, staring into the abyss where the enemy once loomed. His reflection in the glass looked older than he remembered, scarred, spent, but not broken. The door slid open behind him. Mara entered, holding a data slate with trembling hands. We intercepted a signal from the Galactic fringe. It's not Racthal. Elias turned. Something worse? She nodded slowly. Something ancient. Something awake. The signal pulsed with rhythmic tones, neither language nor music, but a sequence that stirred unease. Mara's analysis revealed a terrifying consistency. The waveform was identical to the resonance triggered in the ruins of Kepler 186f. The same frequency that made entire warships hesitate. Worse, it had changed. It wasn't echoing anymore. It was responding. Elias reviewed the projected trajectory. They're not coming to observe. No, Mara said. They're coming to judge. On Earth, panic simmered behind government curtains. Delegates argued, military leaders blustered, and factions rose demanding surrender or silence. But neither would help. Humanity had done the unthinkable. It had scratched the memory of something old, and that memory had blinked. The final decision came quietly. The world wouldn't beg. It would prepare. The Aegis Veil launched ahead of all fleets, carrying Phantom Unit to intercept whatever emerged from the void. Imani loaded her rifle in silence. Kaido muttered a quiet prayer to gods he didn't believe in. Juno ran system diagnostics like it mattered more than breathing. Elias stood before them, eyes unblinking. This isn't a mission. This is a message. We don't survive by hiding. We survive by reminding them. Mara entered, wearing a sleek exoframe laced with neurofeedback mesh. She looked different, stronger, sharper, distant. I'm broadcasting the same signal we found in the ruins. When they arrive, they'll hear their past, and see something new wearing its skin. Elias studied her. You sure you want to do this? Her answer came without hesitation. Someone has to look the myth in the eye. The first anomaly appeared outside Neptune's orbit. A ripple in space. Not a ship. Not a creature. A distortion, an absence of stars, folding in and out of itself. And then, with no flare or noise, a shape emerged. It wasn't made of matter. It wore matter. A shell of mineral, memory, and malice, shaped like nothing human minds could categorize. Spines of light. Veins of dark. Shifting faces without eyes. Sensors failed to lock. Weapons refused to calibrate. Time seemed slower near it. Thought became brittle. Mara activated the transmitter. The signal pulsed once. The entity paused. Then shifted. One of its tendrils reached, not to strike, but to listen. Mara stepped forward onto the projection platform. Her voice carried through all frequencies, enhanced by the suit's interface. You left echoes behind. The Racthal buried them. We unearthed them. We heard you. Silence. Then, vibration, not in the air, but in the soul. The crew flinched, hands over ears, though no sound touched them. A presence, immense and unfathomable, noticed. Mara didn't falter. We are not your prey. We are not your kin. But we remember the terror you left. And we've shaped it into resolve. Elias gripped the railing. She's reaching too far. No, Juno whispered. She's daring it to blink. The entity pulsed once more, and the ship's lights dimmed. In the silence, Mara spoke the final line, one etched from the ruins in Kepler. Prey that learns the hunter's name, ceases to be prey. Then clarity. The entity retracted its tendrils. The distortion warped again. And then, it left. Not in retreat. In recognition. Hours later, the Phantom Unit sat in stunned silence. No battle. No destruction. Only the quiet shift of power. Elias stood beside Mara as she shed the exoframe. So that's it? He asked. They saw us and just left? She looked out the viewport. No. They saw themselves. And it scared them. A year passed. The Racthal never returned. Other species began to send envoys, not with demands but with reverence. Stories had spread. Not of war, but of a people who stared into the abyss and refused to blink. Earth was no longer fringe. It was legend. Phantom Unit was disbanded. Record sealed. But their echoes remained, on walls, in whispers, in training simulations across 1,000 star systems. And somewhere, in the void between galaxies, something ancient kept listening. Not to dominate, but to remember.